Blue sea, blue sky, white sand. After resolving the earlier hiccup, we had all decided to head for one of Touraj's famous beaches together. With the exception of our little shopping spree, we had been spending most of our time on nothing but quests lately, so I wanted my friends to enjoy this rare day off to their heart's content. Master, what do you think? When I finished changing into my swimwear, I found Eiffel waiting alone outside, dressed in a pale one-piece swimsuit that perfectly complemented her porcelain-like skin. There was a slight blush on her cheeks, perhaps due to the embarrassment of showing more of her body than usual. Her bashful expression was like an arrow through my heart. In contrast to when I had bought her, her gaunt body had filled out in a healthy way. It suits you very well, Eiffel. So much so that I want to take you home with me right now. Thank you very much. But we've only just arrived at the beach. The way that Eiffel would reply to my jokes with such a straight answer was one of the many things I loved about her. Speaking of having just arrived, where's Sarah? She went to get changed with you, didn't she? Sarah-san has already gone ahead to the sea. She looked extremely excited. See. That Sarah, she couldn't bear to wait any longer and already went off to swim? I understand being excited about visiting the beach for the first time, but she could have at least waited for everyone to get changed first. Eiffel-san, where is the meet-up point? Setsuna's voice called out. Chest. Overwhelming difference in power. Setsuna, Nana, and Miyabi also emerged in their swimwear. Miyabi had her hands on her own chest and was muttering something while looking back and forth between Nana's and Eiffel's bodies. Don't worry, yours are not small, they are modest. That said, comparing yours to Nana's, seeing as hers are about the same size as Eiffel's in spite of her young appearance, is not going to end well. Setsuna's body, on the other hand, was well-toned thanks to her daily training. She was not too muscular, and her chest was also rather sizable. Whoa, hold on, what the hell have I been thinking this whole time? I'm too young to be a pervy old man. Get yourself together, Kelvin. With you being in the prime of your life, my king, such thoughts are hardly unusual given all the pretty girls in swimsuits before your eyes. I would be worried if you weren't paying attention to them. Gerard, stop reading my mind. This grandpa had ended up rejoining us shortly after the incident with the hoodlums. In fact, he had shown up with such perfect timing that I half suspected he'd been watching from the sidelines and had waited to make his appearance. According to him, he had been separated from the heroes after becoming too engrossed in looking through the various equipment displays. At the moment, he had returned to my magic pool after his usual refusal to remove his armor. I had tried baiting him with all of the fun activities that one associates with the beach, including fishing, but he had firmly turned them all down. Wait, could this swimsuit thing be the reason why? Ha ha ha, this may be eye candy for you, my king, but for me, it is akin to watching my grandchildren playing in the water. If I'm being honest, I'm staying here more to poke fun at you than anything else. Alright, how about I summon you inside the sea? Now, just hold on. I was joking. Only joking. I'll rust in the water. Oh, don't worry, your armor isn't weak enough to rust in mere seawater. You would sink though. Clotho, say something to your master for me. The slime was also resting inside my magic pool. I very much wanted to let it out to play with us, but just like during our audience with the Queen, it was hard to bring such a creature out into the open in Turai. I'll treat you to some great food when we return to Parth, so please bear with me for now. See, my king, even Clotho is backing me up. Alright. I don't get what's so fun about watching me, but knock yourself out. Seeing youngsters enjoying themselves is a favorite pastime of elderly folk. In any case, don't worry about me. You go enjoy yourself too, my king. I guess if this is considered resting for Gerard, then why not? Thank you for waiting for us, said Nana. I know it's a bit late to bring this up, Setsuna added in a slightly apologetic tone, but are you sure about us joining you, Kelvin-san? We're not imposing, are we? Oh, don't worry about it. When it comes to beach trips, the more the merrier, right? Plus, I get a knife. Nope, I said nothing. Ifil seemed occupied as she examined her swimsuit. Master, the concept of this article of clothing is amazing. To think, it's actually designed for getting wet. I had been surprised myself when I learned that this world had swimsuits too. Apparently, they were specialty products made by merpeople who lived in a settlement in the Dragon Sea, located within Toraj's borders. Their methods of production were an absolute mystery, and they traded with Torai in exchange for the kingdom's protection. I was told that if I was lucky, I might happen upon a merperson walking around the city. Do they use magic to grow legs or something? The colors seem a bit bland compared to what we had back in Japan, but these are of the same quality in every other way. Mystery technology. Our unconventional first impressions aside, the heroes bumping into my party here in Torai was probably some stroke of fate. I thought it would be a good idea for all of us to use this time at the beach to get to know each other a bit better. However, Kelvin-san, how could you leave me behind? Ah, sorry about that. I just couldn't wait to see the ocean. Tuya, your absolute gospel warrants the utmost vigilance here. I had gone to the meeting point ahead of him, intending to forestall any possible incidents. As I had feared, Ifil had already been waiting there all alone. If this were a rom-com manga, there'd be no telling what sort of crazy trouble Tuya might have caused. He was a perverted bomb that could go off at any moment. Sorry, man, but I'm going to keep all of my detection skills on full alert for the duration of this trip. My king, I don't think you need to be that concerned about the lad. If I'm doing this, I'm going all out. Once everyone arrived and I had renewed my resolve to keep Tuya in check, we headed towards the water together. When we reached the shoreline, we found a certain someone waiting for us, arms crossed and legs spread. Kelvin. I don't know how to swim. You'll have to teach me. Sarah was wearing a bikini that showed off her perfect hourglass figure. Her appearance was so stimulating that it drew the eyes of every single man who walked past and invoked a genuine look of despair on Miyabi's face. There stood the Demon Lord's daughter, her fire-red side tail blowing in the coastal wind, a look of absolute confidence on her face. It did not slip my notice that her swimsuit was slightly wet. In other words, she must have already tried diving in and then given up. Sarah, if you can't swim, why did you get into the water by? I overestimated myself. Master, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I did the same as well. You too, Ifil? But you looking embarrassed is cute, so all is forgiven. Hey, heroes, I'll be teaching these two how to swim. You four go on ahead and have some fun in the meantime. If you need a hand, I can also help teach. No, thanks. Oh, no you don't. My quick refusal overlapped with Setsuna's shout. It struck me that this must be the responsibility that Setsuna was always shouldering. Such a heavy burden at such a young age. Once we entered the water, Sarah mastered the ability to swim in less than 5 minutes, without all that much teaching from me, and started doing the butterfly stroke all over the place like a pro. The thought, don't her wings add extra resistance when she swims? Briefly flashed across my mind, but it didn't seem to be an issue. By the time we packed up to go home, Ifil had become as proficient at swimming as the average person. My concerns about Tuya's absolute gospel skill proved to be in vain. All in all, it was a very enjoyable day off indeed. Hollow Diamond. About a week had passed since Kristoff and his companions had been apprehended and charged as the primary culprits behind Blackwind's activities. According to the hero's original schedule, they should have been out on the open sea bound for the western continent by now. However, The civil officials who would normally process the seaport's paperwork suddenly found themselves having to handle the fallout surrounding the gangsters. Part of which included procuring the heroes' testimonies for both Turai and the guild's records. While those officials scrambled around in a frenzy, Tuya and his friends found themselves with a week or so of downtime and nothing much to do. I couldn't very well sit by and let them waste that time twiddling their thumbs. So, after our joint day at the beach, I used the rest of the week to give them a bit of training inside a nearby dungeon. At rank A, Dragon Sea Cave was the most dangerous dungeon in the vicinity of Turai, so much so that everything inside it could kill an average adventurer in a single blow. Based on the game I had played with the heroes the other day, I knew that they were certainly stronger than Kristoff and his buddies, in other words, stronger than experienced rank A adventurers. Consequently, they were going to need a dungeon like this to get anything worthwhile out of their training. As for why I was doing the training, well, there wasn't any particular reason. I suppose it was partly because they were the group that Melfina had gone to the trouble of bringing over, and also partly because they were Japanese too, not that I'd told them about myself. Although it had only been a few days since we first met, I was familiar enough with them now that it would prick my conscience if I heard about them dying horribly somewhere. They seemed to be serious about defeating the Demon Lord, so this was my way of giving them a little boost. Personally, I wanted to fight a Demon Lord too, but self-restraint is important sometimes. Damn, it's so soft and springy that I can't cut it with my sword. Tuya, be careful. Octogigants can emit electricity. Miyabi and Nana, stay focused. Being in support roles, you should always keep an eye on the overall situation. If it looks like the front line can't retreat in time, make a path for them by freezing the water. That should help a bit. Understood, Kelvin-san. Tuya, think of better ways to use your white magic. Fighting doesn't only involve charging forward with your sword and spamming spells left and right. Yes sir. In this way, I was having the four heroes fight against actual monsters while giving them pointers along the way, and stepping in myself when things got too dicey. The creature that they were currently facing was a rank A monster called an Octogigant. This enormous green octopus had extremely slimy and flexible skin that was highly resistant to physical attacks. As well as antenna-like horns all over its body, each capable of releasing high-voltage electrical blasts. Since nearly the entire battle zone was covered in water, that ability was especially troubling, creating a need for imaginative and flexible thinking when facing off against it. After several rounds of fighting against similarly powerful monsters, I would allow them to get some rest. Not willing to let even that time go to waste, my party and I spent the breaks drilling fundamentals into them. Gerard took charge of the sword fighters while Ephil and I handled the two mages. In the beginning, I had tried asking Sarah to help out but quickly learned that she wasn't well suited to teaching others. Apparently, her brilliance allowed her to pick up things intuitively, which in turn meant that she wasn't good at breaking them down for others. This is where you brace yourself like. Then boom. After that, you go bam. See? Easy, isn't it? I'm sorry, what? As I said, watch closely, you go boom. Bam. The rhythm is important. Kelvin-san, can you help interpret? Sorry, I don't really get what she's saying, either. Even when Sarah tried to explain things in more detail, her sentences were so riddled with onomatopoeia that nobody could make heads or tails of what she was trying to tell them. My original hope was that, as a fellow user of black magic, Sarah would make a good instructor for Miyabi, but some things just don't work out the way you expect. After I released her from teaching duty, my hyper-companion dove into the depths of the dungeon with a Clotho clone that was specialized for battle. Simply to kill some time. Every once in a while, a fanfare rang out inside my head, which I took to mean they were making good progress. For what it was worth, I did tell her to come back once she found the dungeon boss. The rest of us were heading for the depths of the dungeon as well, albeit at a much slower pace. In the meantime, the heroes continued gathering level ups and experience as they completed match after match with the monsters along the way. Fortunately, all 4 heroes were well blessed in the stats department. My main goal was to help them get used to actual combat. Up until now, they had likely been able to get by thanks to their high stats, powerful skills, and the protection of the Holy Order of Knights. In order to reach even greater heights, however, they were going to need to step out of their comfort zones and explore their own paths. Helping them to shore up their fundamentals would enable them to do just that. Whether or not they could reach the next step of their growth as heroes afterwards would be entirely up to them. Something else that could potentially give them a leg up was knowledge of other skills that were out there. Even I didn't understand it all, but for what it was worth, I told them about the doubling skills. I wasn't sure how cost-effective it would be for them to pick up those particular abilities given their rather expensive costs and the fact that all 4 heroes were already nearing level 60. But I shared the information with them just in case, and drove home the fact that this should be treated as the most classified of all secrets and that under no circumstance should they share it with anyone else. Still, I was slightly worried. If anything happens, let's make them sit in the Caesar pose again. As an aside, Sarah, Gerard, and Clotho had been unable to acquire the doubling skills. Those options simply didn't show up on the skills tab of their respective status screens. The reason for this was unclear. Seeing as Ephil had been able to pick up those same skills at level 1 without a problem, we theorized that there could be race restrictions on certain abilities. After probing our surroundings with presence sensing and confirming that there was no danger nearby, I announced, "All right, you guys, time for a break." HNNGG, I'm so tired. We are moving pretty fast, agreed Tuya. The last time I was this exhausted was when we did that special training regimen in Daramus, I think. That's just because you guys slack off on training all the time. My stomach, growling. Oh, you're right, it's already noon. I do tend to forget the time when inside a dungeon. Ephil, can you start preparing lunch? Yes, master. I'll go take first watch, my king. Thanks. I'll switch with you a bit later. Ephil retrieved a picnic basket and a large sheet from Clotho's storage. After carefully laying the sheet on the ground, she deftly set up the meal in a matter of seconds. I've prepared the rice that Tsubaki-sama sent us in an easily packable style. It is a traditional dish called onigiri. All of these contain the standard fillings used in Turai. When Ephil opened the basket, cheers went up from the heroes. It really is onigiri. It was so nice getting to have rice at Turai Castle, but seeing it in the shape of onigiri is really taking me back. I think I might be crying. The side dishes also look like picnic lunchboxes. This reminds me of lunch break at school again. I was also quite surprised. It seemed that Ephil had learned a lot more than just Japanese cuisine back in Turai. Good job indeed. I patted her head more than I usually did. As for the heroes, though, don't forget that we're still inside a dungeon. What if all that cheering just now had attracted monsters? Never let your guard down. Oh, that's right, we'll be careful. Memoed in my heart. Well, there were a lot of things that they still needed to learn aside from combat. This time, however, I had secretly erected a silent whisper barrier beforehand, just in case. All right, then, let's dig in. Thank you for the food, the 4 of them said in unison. I hope you all enjoy it. I took a bite of the onigiri in my hand. This is. Inside my mouth, the rice that had been pressed together all fell apart, opening up the way for a refreshing sour taste that rushed out from the filling in the middle. The flavors were in perfect harmony, attaining godly heights that exceeded even that of the most impeccably prepared rice dish in Japan. Never had I imagined that there would be dried plums in this world. The founder of Tarai sure knew what he was doing. What also surprised me was how, despite having learned this recipe only yesterday, Ifil had already mastered the pressing of rice with a proficiency normally exhibited by veteran sushi chefs with decades of experience. Wait, that's strange, I can't see well with all this water in my eyes. Ahem, Ifil, it looks like you've gotten even more skilled than before. This is so delicious that it's making me tear up. My cooking skill has finally reached rank S. I put a lot of love into making this. Seriously? So this is how food made with rank S cooking tastes. Haha, I'm so touched that my body is shaking. Wait, I really am feeling warmer. Hang on, I just got some sort of buff. Is this from your food, Ifil? When I checked my status, I found rank S cooking, magic increase, large, in the passive effects area. When I trained Analyze Eye on it, a timer on the effect also popped up, currently counting down from 23 hours 59 minutes. Damn, this buff lasts an entire day? As a test, I took one more bite. So good. Okay, but do my eyes really have to gush with tears every time I take a bite of rank S cooking? In any case, it doesn't look like I received any other buffs. Maybe buffs from cooking can't be stacked. Ifil-san, thank you. Thank you. I will never forget the taste of this onigiri. I can't stop crying. Goddess Ifil. I'm glad everyone seems to be enjoying it. The four heroes were also crying rivers of tears as they expressed their heartfelt thanks. You guys, it's fine to feel grateful, but how about expressing it in a way that doesn't freak Ifil out? Amidst the chaos, Sarah returned with Clotho bouncing about on her shoulder. You guys started eating ahead of, whoa, what on earth is happening here? Don't worry about it. How were things on your end? There was a monster room on the way, so we wiped out everything inside. Sadly, it wasn't an infinite spawning room. I was just getting warmed up when I ran out of things to kill. Monster room was a term that showed up frequently in dungeon crawler games in reference to a special chamber where monsters would spawn in huge numbers. As a result, the monster type specific to that dungeon would appear to be infinitely spawning. Combined with the fact that they would proactively attack the people unfortunate enough to stumble across the room. It wasn't hard to understand why this feature was considered the most deadly trap any adventurer should keep an eye out for. Or at least that was the general opinion. Sarah, of course, had casually cleared one such room in a rank A dungeon with only a tiny slime for backup. Little wonder I've been hearing the level up fanfare going off again and again. Oh, and I also found the bow. What is this? It's delicious. The rather important sounding information she'd been about to share was left unspoken in the face of Ifil's onigiri. Hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, Phew, I'm stuffed, sighed Sarah, rubbing her belly in satisfaction after having her fill of the food. Sue, what were we talking about again? I believe you were in the middle of telling us that you found the dungeon boss? It's already completely slipped her mind, hasn't it? Right. I found a monster that kinda looked the part, she answered, proudly puffing up her very prominent chest. Come on, you just made Miyabi cough up blood with that move, the poor girl. What did it look like? It was a water dragon. I've seen one in a book before. So we've finally encountered a dragon, one of the top 3 most powerful species in this world alongside demons and angels. I think even the heroes can currently handle a low-tier dragon, but if it's the boss of this dungeon, we're most definitely looking at a rank S opponent. It's still a bit early for them to take that on. Colette mentioned that monsters all over are becoming more vicious and powerful than usual due to the Demon Lord's impending resurrection, said Tuya. That probably goes for this dungeon boss as well. Colette? Is that the Oracle of Daramus? Yep, she's the one who brought us to this world. When we first arrived, we couldn't make heads or tails of anything. Right, we were just chatting as usual in our classroom after school when a magic circle suddenly appeared on the ground beneath us. Everything went black, we met a goddess in a dream, and when we woke up, we found ourselves in the middle of the great cathedral of Daramus. What a cliched way to get called over. Not that my road was any less cliched, to be fair. So, how much do you guys actually know about the dungeons in this world? This time, it was Miyabi who spoke up first. As if reciting by rote, she said, "Dungeons are places with high magic density, dangerous regions, or abandoned buildings where monsters have taken to wandering about. Although they are called dungeons, they vary greatly in form, some examples of which include labyrinths, caves, and forests. While dangerous, they also contain valuable items and precious treasures that make them very attractive to adventurers. Within the deepest part of each dungeon is a boss monster. Bosses are frequently the target of subjugation quests issued by the Adventurers Guild." All correct. Sounds like you've read up on this. She's a bit of a strange girl, but she seems to have a sharp mind. Back when we were in Daramus, we dove into a few dungeons and took out the bosses inside, added Tuya. They were mostly rank C and lower, though. So you guys do have experience with fighting boss monsters. Alright, next question. Why do you think the guild issues subjugation quests for them? I asked. Because the bosses are strong and therefore a greater threat to the adventurers who enter the dungeon, offered Nana. And, added Setsuna, the spawn rate of monsters in a dungeon becomes higher when the boss monster is present, leading to more of them escaping. In effect, this makes the surrounding area more dangerous than it would otherwise be. Tuya snapped his fingers. After the boss is defeated, the other monsters in the dungeon become less ferocious for a while, right? Though I've also heard that the bosses revive again after a set period of time. Full marks to each of you. The guild frequently issues subjugation quests for boss monsters for all of those reasons. Under normal circumstances, it would take a dungeon boss anywhere from 1 year to several decades to revive. But as of late, that time frame has been growing shorter and shorter, and the bosses themselves are getting stronger, some to the point where their strength is exceeding the rank of the dungeon they are in. The monsters in the vicinity of Parth, where I'm based, are by and large weaker than those found throughout other parts of the continent, but recently, even we had a rank A monster on our hands. A lot of people are raising a fuss, claiming this to be a portent of the Demon Lord's resurrection. In fact, it had sort of become my responsibility to take care of all the monsters that were rank B and higher in the area around Parth. Fortunately, their numbers haven't been all that high, but Rio is definitely a bit of a slave driver. Final question. This dungeon that we're clearing right now, the Dragon Sea Cave, is a rank A dungeon. That makes the boss a rank S monster, finished the heroes meekly. We're almost out of time before you depart for the Western continent, so we'll be making this the final leg of your training. Sarah, lead the way. Sure thing. Right this way. Our procession followed along behind Sarah, ducking into secret passageways and passing by destroyed traps. Thanks to her already having cleared the monsters along that route, we didn't encounter any on our way. Whoa, look at this. Is this the room you mentioned? We could see a large cave surrounded by water. The closer to the wall, the deeper the water. In all likelihood, it was from the murky depths that the monsters continuously emerged. Close to where the water met the land, there were mounds of carcasses, with a few floating lifelessly on the still surface, staining it with blood. In order to drive home the point that a room like this was extremely dangerous, I had telepathically ordered Clotho not to absorb the bodies just yet. The plan was for my slime to do the absorbing through a clone after we passed the chamber again on our way back out. This is unbelievable. Several octogigantes are already enough of a threat to us. How many monsters are there in here? Tuya exclaimed. The corpses are all torn apart, so it's hard to tell, but, several dozen, no, several hundred? Murmured Setsuna. Clotho and I split up the work, so I don't know the exact number, Sarah said dismissively. I stopped counting halfway through. Several octohegont corpses lay scattered throughout the piles of bodies. This was a feat only possible thanks to Sarah and Clotho's abnormally high power levels. If it had been the heroes who had come across this room, they would have been done for. The ability to spawn overwhelming numbers was a fearsome power in and of itself. If you guys ever have to take on a monster room, do not charge straight in like an idiot. Whenever your usual fighting style clearly can't cut it, use your heads instead. Rearrange the situation to your advantage in any way you can. If you don't want to let your friends die, that is. Did you just indirectly call me an idiot? Sarah demanded. I did not, so please put down your fist. I appreciate your ability to lighten up serious situations, but now is not the time. So, can you lower your fist now? Please? Hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond. Master, I see it. It's sleeping at the bottom of the lake. I see it too. So do I, my king. It's just uselessly bulky, if you ask me. We were inside the boss room, staring at an enormous subterranean lake. Pale blue light shone through cracks in the rock wall, giving the place a mystical atmosphere. A huge silhouette lay at the bottom of the dark depths. There was no mistaking it, it was indeed a water dragon. Stay behind the rocks and don't stick your faces out too far. Even though it seems to be asleep, there's no telling what might set it off. The four heroes gawked wordlessly at the dragon's massive form. So, as we discussed earlier, dungeon bosses are generally a bad thing for nearby settlements. In this case, leaving the water dragon alone for too long would be dangerous for Tarai. As the heroes, what should you do? This was my last test for them. So, guys, how will you handle this one? Well, we can't beat it with our current strength. We should run away. You sure? Even if doing so means potentially leaving the people of Tarai to an untimely demise? I can't let Setsuna, Nana, and Miyabi die. Yes, I'm a hero, but before that, I'm their friend. Even if people condemn my choice, I wouldn't ever engage in such a reckless fight again. We should get stronger, come up with a plan, and make every possible preparation before coming back. Tuya's words drew nods from all three of his companions. Nice job. You pass. Make sure you never ever forget that attitude. Hollow diamond, 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 hollow diamond. I promise I will never forget, Tuya swore solemnly, looking straight into Kelvin's eyes. This vow was proof of his separation from the person he had been before, an enthusiastic young hero drunk on an unflappable sense of justice. Rashly charging into every situation without a second thought. Tuya found Kelvin to be a rather enigmatic person. Although he had nearly been subjected to false charges based on Tuya's own misunderstanding, the adventurer had turned around right afterwards and chosen to coach them. He was so strong that the four heroes together had been unable to take him down. All of his allies, in spite of their individual quirks, were also incredibly nice and in possession of equally unfathomable levels of strength. Glad to hear it. Well then, this is where our job begins. What job? Asked Nana, echoing Tuya's thoughts. Come on, guys, we're adventurers too. What else are we going to do after trekking all the way to a boss room? Tsubaki-sama came to us last night. You mean? That's right. Time to have some fun, shouted Sarah, diving straight into the lake without a shred of hesitation. Look at her go. What I would give to be young again. Gerard-san, please leave the melancholic nostalgia for when we get back home. Master, I'll be providing support fire as planned. Sounds good. Gerard, off you go. Shoo, shoo. Good grief, is that any way to treat an elder? But even while muttering his complaints, the knight descended from the ledge. I thought that Ifil San was just around to take care of Kelvin San, but she can fight too? Master, I'm off. Go ahead. We'll wait for you to deliver the first blow. An instant later, Ifil disappeared. Tuya hadn't looked away. In fact, he had been keeping a close eye on her as well as the other members of Kelvin's party. Yet he had lost sight of her distinctive maid outfit in the blink of an eye. He couldn't even sense her presence any longer. She disappeared, exclaimed Nana. Can you tell where she is with your presence sensing, Setsuna-chan? Covert action? It's no good, I'm getting nothing. She's completely erased her presence. If it's covert action, her skill level must be super high to be capable of pulling this off even while we were watching. Even Setsuna can't detect her? Kelvin-san, where is Ifil S? Tuya's question was interrupted by an explosion so deafening that it sounded like a pile of dynamite going off. Peering over the edge, Tuya saw that the lake itself was on fire. Looks like that's where she fired from. What? Tuya looked towards where Kelvin was pointing in. Sure enough, there was Ifil's figure, perched on another ledge close to the rock wall, quite a distance away, with a new arrow already nocked and ready. What? How did she do all that damage with a bow? She has her ways. In any case, it looks like it did the job. The monster's awake now. A roar emanated from deep within the lake. Pure, unadulterated fear welled up in the very core of Tuya's body. He couldn't stop trembling. Ahaha, and it's kind of ticked off, too. Maybe that was a little too much noise and pain for a wake-up tap. In contrast to how Tuya felt, Kelvin-san didn't seem the slightest bit fazed. He even had the composure to crack a joke. How are you saying that so calmly? It's a rank S monster. Calm down, man. Look, it's rearing its head. The black shape grew larger and larger. In no time at all, the creature that had been lurking below burst up in a giant spray of water. R-O-H-H R-O-H-H R-O. The massive amethyst-colored bulk rose into the air, flapping its wings and unleashing such a thunderous cry that the ground shook and ripples spread across the surface of the lake. The dragon panned its head around as it hovered above them. My ears, Nana whimpered. It's so loud. I can't move, groaned Tuya, his body automatically curling up in fear. That roar didn't carry a debuff or anything, right? Who dares disturb my sleep? Well, that's surprising, said Kelvin with interest. You have enough intelligence to speak despite being an evil dragon, huh? Did you happen to previously be an ancient dragon? Although it was a bit hard to understand, the beast was indeed speaking human words. Tuya recalled that during their lessons with Colette, there had been a whole section dedicated to the dragon race. If I remember correctly, evil dragons are those who have succumbed to their desires for power or greed. They have better stats than normal dragons, but the trade-off is a marked degeneration of their intelligence. Since this one can still hold a conversation, it must have been a rather high-tiered dragon in the past, just as Kelvin-san asked. HMPH, looks like a few ants have wandered into my home. Do you puny beings think you can win by attacking in a group? We don't want to hear that from someone who can't even gauge his opponent's strength, you big lizard, smirked Sarah from a position slightly higher than the dragon's eyes. She even followed up her comment with a provocative laugh. Whoa, Sarah-san's really amping up the tension. Tuya, are my eyes playing tricks on me, or is Sarah-san also floating in the air like the dragon is? She's not using skywalk the way I do, either. Just as Setsuna said, Sarah was adopting her usual haughty stance, but this time in midair. Tuya couldn't tell what sort of skill she was using to do it, but he had a feeling she was capable of a lot more amazing things that he and his friends weren't yet aware of. Howl all you like, little humans. I am a dragon who has attained unlimited power. The difference in strength between us is... Hey, sorry to interrupt your very impressive speech, but your tail's already ours. Wait, seriously, Kelvin-san? Before Tuya knew it, Kelvin, who had been right beside him just a moment before, had crossed over to stand behind Sarah. The same moment that he noticed that fact, another roar, this time a scream of pain, filled the air. "Ruah-hhh. You have far too many openings, you know that?" commented Gerard as his sword sliced through the dragon's tail at its root. With a splash, the powerful muscle tumbled into the lake. "You ant. That is unforgivable." The dragon breath unleashed by the beast was like a water jet. A stream of high-pressured fluid that could bisect anything without mercy suddenly closed in on Kelvin and his party members. However, the three of them managed to dodge the torrent with such coordinated movements that it almost seemed like they were reading each other's minds. The second they had drawn far enough back, Eiffel fired. Crimson flames swirled around the red bow she was holding and had been gathering around the nocked arrow. Upon its release, the arrow rocketed forward as if propelled by the engine of a fighter jet. "So that's the sound I heard before," Tuya murmured. Every arrow that Eiffel shot exploded with a deafening boom. What she was holding was no longer a bow, but a cannon. The sound generated by each arrow's release and the resulting explosion upon contact with the water dragon were equally terrifying. In addition, despite practically spamming such incredible magic, it has to be magic, right? She was showing no signs of MP fatigue at all. Is she really just a maid? Roar. The dragon turned its head towards Eiphel's position on the rock wall, but she was no longer there. Has she gone into hiding again to change her vantage point? "Don't look away during a fight," shouted Sarah as she delivered a follow-up blow to the back of the monster's head. The impact of her strike caused the hulking form to crash back down into the lake at an incredible speed. To be honest, from that point on, the encounter couldn't even be called a fight anymore. Every time the creature attempted a spell, Kelvin would offset it with one of his own. When it tried to use brute force, it would lose to Gerard. Every time it took another punch from Sarah, it would become even weaker, and every time it exposed an opening, Eiffel would carpet bomb the hell out of it. Tuya laughed weakly. "Your master really is something, isn't he? Do you think I could ever reach his level?" he asked the slime called Clotho. For all Tuya knew, even this little critter that merely jiggled itself as if to say, "Who knows," might be unbelievably powerful as well. Kelvin truly was an enigma. Hollow diamond, 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 hollow diamond. The day after the water dragon subjugation, the hero's ship finally received permission to depart from Turai. The preparations for the journey had been completed several days in advance, so the four teens were making their way straight to the port. My party and I also headed over to see them off. "Esteemed heroes. The ship is ready to leave at any time," shouted one of the crewmen in an energetic voice. Tuya smiled wryly in response and gave a short laugh. "Please don't do the esteemed heroes thing. Our cover story is that we're normal adventurers, remember?" "Ah, I'm sorry. How could I forget? It's fine, just be careful next time. We'll be boarding soon, please give us a moment." After the sailor withdrew, the teens turned to us. "Kelvin-san and everyone else, thank you so much for everything you've done for us. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't want to. There's nothing to thank me for. By the way, you guys only got permission to cast off just now, right? You're leaving so soon? According to our original schedule, we should have been on that ship a few days ago. And we wouldn't want to impose on you any longer. As I said, you weren't impose. From his position behind me, Gerard placed a hand on my shoulder. This is the lad's decision. Let's accept it. You're as direct as ever, I chuckled, pulling a few things out of Clotho's storage. I threw one to each of the heroes, saying, it's my parting gift. Here you go. Wah, ho, hup. Kelvin-san, what is this? Asked Tuya, fumbling a few times as he caught the object. Setsuna peered closely at hers. It's a pendant? I nodded. Yep. Made it off the cuff. Just think of it as a lucky charm. What I had lobbed at each of them were pendants modeled after their respective magical affinities. The items provided a tiny stats buff plus a secret function of my own design. I didn't expect them to ever actually need it, but it might prove useful in a pinch. The smithing skill didn't cover accessories, so I'd had to borrow the appropriate skill from a local ornament craftsman with Skill Eater. Tsunere archetype? Really, Miyabi? Your response to getting a gift is to call me a Tsunere? I try being nice for once and this is what I get. Although, I guess that's just part of what makes her, her. Amazing. Mine looks like an ice crystal. Kelvin-san, thank you very much. I'll take good care of it. You continue working hard together with Moon, alright, Nana? That little whelp of yours is probably going to evolve into a full-grown dragon soon. So watch out, it won't be able to fit into your rucksack then. Rawr. Oh, Moon-chan, don't say that. I couldn't understand what the tiny reptile said, but apparently it enjoyed riding in Nana's bag. Sounds like a dog that likes sticking its head out of the car window. Don't they say it's not good to over-pamper a pet? Setsuna spoke up next. I was able to have a rather easy time of it here in Tarai, very likely thanks to you, Kelvin-san. And you even helped us beat this justice-obsessed idiot into shape. I have no words to express how thankful I am. When times get tough, you just need to hang in there. In spite of his faults, he's still the leader of your party, right? Setsuna sighed. I'll do my best. Can you guys not talk about me right in front of my face? In fairness, Tuya had grown quite a bit, both physically and mentally, what with everything that had happened this past week. I was hopeful that Setsuna's burden had grown just a little bit lighter. Tuya clenched his fist resolutely. No matter what happens on the Western continent, we'll do our best. All I can say is, I hope you don't end up running in the wrong direction again. Ahaha, it wouldn't hurt you to have a little faith in me. I'd already very, very strictly warned Tuya and the girls to never, ever explain the effects of their unique skills to anyone, not even to me. People in possession of Analyze Eye at a high enough rank would be able to see the names of those skills but could only guess at their effects. Keeping that information hidden could prove to be an enormous advantage if used properly, so even I still didn't know the exact details of what Absolute Gospel and Iron Cutting Authority did. My curiosity was a small thing in exchange for their lives, though. Well then, Kelvin-san, we'll be off. Oh, is it time already? Ephil, now would be good. Yes, Master. She turned to the four heroes. Here you go. I have packed you each a lunchbox with simple dishes. Please enjoy it during your trip. When she'd learned of their scheduled departure, Ephil had quickly whipped up 4 lunchboxes packed with onigiri, leftovers from yesterday, and sandwiches for an unexpectedly modern meal. Tuya accepted the basket on the hero's behalf. Ephil-san. You're the best. Thank you so much. Goddess Ephil. I didn't think we would get to enjoy Ephil-san's cooking again once we left. I'll make sure to share it with Moon-chan. All 4 of them thanked Ephil profusely while shaking her hand in a heartfelt manner. Goddammit, these kids. Now you guys are all happy and touched? I mean, I know that putting myself on a scale against Ephil's cooking is just asking for heartache, but still. I too am a captive of her incredible food, but still. We'll be setting sail soon. Those who need to board, please do so now, announced a crewman loudly. The preparations for the ship's departure had been completed. Go on, you guys don't want to miss the boat. Ah. We need to hurry. Everyone, let's run. Wait for me. At once, the heroes sprinted onto the ship, with Nana lagging behind slightly, but their faces soon popped back into view over the railing. Kelvin-san, I promise I will never forget everything that you've taught me, shouted Tuya. Let's meet again someday, added Nana, still panting a bit. We'll grow strong enough to beat you next time. Thank you so much for everything. Ditto. Next time, we win. The four of them continued to wave at us until their ship was out of sight. When I considered how badly I had messed with them at the start, being on the receiving end of such gratitude made me feel a bit guilty. Master really is a kind person. Indeed, all those youngsters looked as if a burden had been lifted. What nonsense are you two talking? The only thing that happened was me pulling them along on a whim. Anyway, it's almost noon. We should go grab some lunch ourselves. Master is cute when he's feeling bashful. I'm not bashful. And putting that aside, the western continent's where they're going. That's where the Rizian Empire is. Curious, I decided to send Gerard a private message. Gerard, and I'm just asking for the sake of it, if we pick a fight with Rizia in our current state, would we win? Where did that come from? I was just thinking about my promise to you. We have to track down Gildora so that you can take revenge, right? Gah ha ha. So you remembered. And here I was, thinking that you'd forgotten. How could I forget something so important? When Gerard had agreed to become my follower, I had promised that I would help him avenge his home country of Alkal by taking down Gildora, the one supposedly responsible for its downfall. I had yet to make any progress towards that goal. Well, I'm not so sure since things might be quite different now than they were during the era in which I was alive. Gildora himself may have moved elsewhere, for all I know. In addition, Rizia used to be the largest country in the western continent. Judging from how that empire and Daramus are still continuing to tussle, it probably hasn't lost all that much strength over the years. Although our party is indeed strong, taking on the empire itself would still be much too dangerous. I see. Looks like we'll have to start with gathering some information, then. I'm in no particular hurry. To be completely honest, even I had thought it would be impossible when I contracted with you. What? And you joined up with me anyway? Well, the way I saw it was, instead of remaining behind in that castle, my chances were higher by going out into the world with you. That was the only degree of hope that I harbored at the time. But then I got to travel with you, my king. And then Ephil joined us, and recently, so did Sarah. Now, we are powerful enough to defeat rank S monsters. Gerard looked up at the sky. My king, I am eternally grateful to you. The dream that I had previously thought impossible seems like it could actually be within reach. When you fulfill your promise, I shall acknowledge you then as my true king and master. Sounds good to me. I don't mind remaining as your pseudo-master until oof. Sarah, who had leapt onto my back, asked, Come on, what are you two talking about all secret like? Ephil, too, was looking up at me as she grabbed the sleeve of my robe. Please don't leave me out, either. All right, I'll tell you guys. So you can get off my back now, Sarah. And Ephil, stop looking so sad. Gahaha. Let's grab some food first, my king. Gerard clanked on ahead and I hurried to catch up to him. With Sarah still on my shoulders and Ephil's hand in my own, I felt the comforting weight of the bonds that I shared with my closest friends.